Uncle Chael, this one's for you, buddy. Got a question for you. I don't know if you've been avoiding it. I don't know if you've answered it in another video, maybe. Who knows? This is my question. Who wins in a sanctioned MMA fight between Daniel Cormier, age 40, and Randy Couture, age 40, at a light heavyweight bout? Who takes that one? Give it to us straight. I don't care whose feelings get hurt. Just let us know, buddy.
Okay, so I think you've shot yourself in the foot here, and I'll tell you why. I think what you're attempting to ask is Daniel Cormier versus Randy Couture, both on their best night. Who wins? That's what I think you're trying to ask, but it's not what you said. You said 40-year-old Randy versus 40-year-old Daniel Cormier. So if you're a DC supporter and you want to hear that DC is going to beat Randy, you are likely right on DC's best night versus Randy's best night. The problem with Randy is he got better with age. Don't forget, Randy started the sport at 34 years old and became the champion of the world at 36 years old. So by the time he got to 40, he wasn't like most guys. He was getting better. He won his last world championship at 44 years old. So, and maybe I should take you literally. I'm just not. I'm assuming because you said 40 for each of them. Now that could change your answer. A 40-year-old Randy Couture against a 40-year-old anybody else. That's a tough night out right there. A 41-year-old Randy, a 42-year-old Randy, a 43, that's a tough night out right there and only getting harder. He got more into nutrition. He started his own supplement lines. He started doing all sorts of scientific things later in his career. So if you're looking to find out who was flat out better, who was the badder dude, and you wanted to side with Daniel, you would have a very good argument, but you asked the question at 40 years old, and I feel like you stacked the deck against Daniel. And I think it tips to Randy.
Hey, Chael, I'm a huge fan. I'm wondering your opinion as a wrestler. Who do you think would win in a grappling match? Khabib or Gordon Ryan? And I know what you're going to say. Well, Gordon Ryan, of course. He's the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the world right now. But I'm not saying Khabib right now. I'm saying if you told Khabib, no more striking, focus on grappling, ship him off to Russia, train with the Bears, how do you think that would go down? First in EBI rules and then in combat jiu-jitsu rules as well. Thanks, Chael.
Okay, so that's a tough one, and I appreciate that you pointed out the rule set, because that's the first place my mind went to as well. Now, I don't know that you would have to ship Khabib off. Khabib is fantastic at grappling, but he's also going to be fantastic at getting the top position. I think the question comes down to size. Is Khabib big enough to go with Gordon? And in many jiu-jitsu tournaments, we don't do a pound for pound. We just put them together. Call it absolute. Doesn't matter what you weigh, doesn't matter what you weigh. Only matters who can beat the other guy. So, with that said, I think that the biggest question for Khabib would be size. Could Gordon sweep him? And Gordon has some positions, particularly from half guard, and they're positions that only the Danaher Death Squad knows. And they're going to be ahead of the curve for about 7 years. It's going to take 5 years until an outsider can see enough competitions, get enough film, figure this out, and break down to have the offensive moves that the Death Squad is doing right now. It's going to take another 2 years to figure out the defenses. That's if the Danaher Death Squad stays equal and doesn't progress. The reason I offer that for you, because Gordon can get to some positions. A half guard in jiu-jitsu used to be viewed as a half guard. You've only got half the position. You're in a bad spot. Now, guys, particularly without striking, that is a whole nother game. When you start getting the Gordon Ryans and the Craig Joneses of the world that find that half guard, this isn't half a position. This is where the match is starting. I do think that Khabib would have a lot better chance than you think. The smaller guy that can get on top is a big problem. It's always the bottom guy that wants to be the smaller guy. You'll remember when Royce Gracie showed the world jiu-jitsu. He was so much smaller than his opponents, but he was winning fights from his back. The smaller guy is a little more squirrely and can move those hips a little bit better. He can arm drag a little bit better. He can get to some attacks better. So if Khabib is on top of Gordon, it's going to be a benefit for Khabib in grappling systems that ultimately have a time limit and favor points. But if Khabib gets entangled, Khabib's getting stretched.
Uncle Chael, You're the best. Out here getting a workout, a home gym during this quarantine. 2 questions I got for you. Connor, Tony, if they fight, right? Connor doesn't sprint in the first 2 rounds and put Tony away. Does he win that fight? Question 2. How would you see a Tony versus Poirier fight going down? Thanks, Uncle Chael.
Well, Tony versus Poirier would be the better fight in terms of longer and back and forth and who won that round. And I think the other guy won this round. And oh my gosh, we're going into the third and this thing could be tied up 1 apiece. That's going to be your better fight. Now let's back up because Connor versus Tony, and you're bringing the sprint up by Connor because I believe you're talking about the endurance and the cardio favors Tony. I don't disagree with you on the endurance and cardio favoring Tony. I have always disagreed with a false narrative that Connor has conditioning issues. I have never seen those. Never. I have seen the night that he got exhausted against Nate Diaz, and I accepted his response if I was not efficient with my energy. I'm forced to accept that, as are all of you, when they do the rematch and Connor changes the pace. And he changes when he puts his foot down on the pedal, he goes all 25 minutes and he gets his hand raised. I don't think he has a conditioning issue. The fact that he could go into boxing with the greatest of all time, when he knew in his heart, I don't even belong in here, I've never done this before, what are these things on my hand, and still stand on his feet for 30 full minutes. But yeah, sure, he got tired after 30 minutes. Sure he did. He's a human being. But to go into something that you haven't done before and not really know where to pace yourself, and you can practice and you can prepare and you can hit the mitts in the bag and you can even jump in a ring with Paulie and spar while people are watching. It's not the same thing as fight night. Fight night creates an anxiety, which creates a pressure, which creates a fatigue. And he still pushed through it. And I think those are the 2 fights where people have always seen and always thought, okay, Connor gets tired. Not giving into consideration that the first time he fought Nate, he was also moved up from 145, 155 to 170, and he moved up a little bit fast, which is going to create some fatigue till you get used to that, till you get used to the shots your opponent can take, know when to hit him hard or just to touch him. And when you know your own body, what's it like when you're now carrying an extra 30 pounds around? I'm just offering for you. I don't know that I've ever bought into this. Get Connor tired and he'll give up. I don't know that I've ever bought into that.
All right, Chael, here's my question to you. Let's say they have an MMA event that's fought in a normal octagon, but instead of fought on a mat, it's fought on a trampoline. So the question is, which fighters do you think would be best suited for this style of fighting? The fighter that comes to my mind right off the bat is someone like Anthony Pettis, who's very creative and elusive. There's lots of crazy kicks that he could implement with the trampoline. Another fighter that I think would be good would be someone like Justin Gaethje, who does that crazy little cartwheel kick he does at the end of almost every round. I think that would be a lot more effective if he could jump a lot higher. Let me know what you think and which fighters would be the best suited for an MMA match on a trampoline in the octagon. Thank you.
What are we doing? Did you send that in on April 1st and I'm just now getting around to it? Certainly you meant that as a joke. I mean, how far do we go with this game? What if we just put these guys on the moon and there's no gravity? What if we put these guys in a phone booth and there's no space? Certainly, you're putting me on right now. I have to play the question, though, because you never broke character. You got one hell of a poker face. So I guess I'll take a little bit of a shot at it. I think if we're using logic, you probably broke it down correctly. The guys that are lighter on their feet and like to jump in the air are probably going to do better on the trampoline. I don't know. I've never understood the difference. Look, I've heard guys make excuses. I've heard guys say, all the way from Tito getting knocked out by Lee Murray and say, well, I was wearing dress shoes. I don't know what one has to do with the other. Were you guys fighting or were you fighting? Were you both on the same surface or were you not? I've never understood that concept. Guys have gone over to Pride and lost and said, but if I was in a cage, I would have done better. I don't know the difference. I've never made those excuses, been around coaches that would allow me to make those excuses. I don't know a goddamn thing about it. So as far as the trampoline goes, I think you might have something there that they're bouncing around, but 2 guys, it seems like it's equal to me.